Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an APRO member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is APRO's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. APRO membership is about way more than advocacy. APRO connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. APRO's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. APRO's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. APRO is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With APRO, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the APRO family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with APRO. Welcome to the RTO show. I'm your host, Pete. We're going to talk with Keith Brock with Dialectic. So let's talk rent to own with him. Keith, good to have you on the show.
Pete, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. You do such great work with your podcast. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, just so that everybody knows a little bit of transparency, this is the second time that we've talked to Keith. The first time we had some stuff go on. It was just a crazy fiasco, but it was a great conversation. So I wanted to make sure that you guys had a talk with that. But just so that we have a little bit of background with Keith, Keith is actually from the rent-to-own sector, and I'm starting to realize that there's actually a lot of other vendors or now, before I even get into that, are you guys a distributor? Are you guys a vendor? What do you classify as?
We are an approved vendor through APRO and Trib. Now, Dialectic itself is an international distributor. So to be fair, I guess you would say we're both.
All right. Well, I mean, it's always good to play both sides of the business, right? So definitely when I'm talking to Keith, one of the big things that always comes out and what always comes to mind is when you have somebody who's been in the RTO arena and then they turn around and they become a vendor for RTO, it makes the relationship so much easier when you have that insight. How do you feel about that, Keith? Do you agree?
Without a doubt. I think it should be evident, at least in most of the mailings that we send out, the promotions that we run, that the background and the industry experience is what helps us separate, although you're 100% right. You're seeing it more and more where rent-own operational veterans are into this side of the business.
So you're in RTO, and I know this story, but this is for everybody out there in the RTO world who's listening. You're in RTO, you get out. What prompted you to become part of Dialectic? And more so, you have a story about a friend that reached out to you, or at least a colleague in the business that reached out to you and said, hey, you're the guy I want for this business.
It is. And you know that entry story is all kind of combined and conjumbled there. Dialectic, as a distributor and as a vendor, reached out to Lewis Garcia, a former president of APRO, former Maryland Rental Dealer Association president, franchisee, just a rent-own veteran, great guy, Lewis Garcia, because he does a consulting business. And they actually reached out to him as a consultant to help them form their rent-to-own department. Lewis was with them about 90 days and gave me a call and said, hey, Keith, look, let's bring our rent-to-own collective knowledge to Dialectic and help form this department. So really, long story short, that's really how that got started.
Now, Lewis Garcia reaches out to you. He says, hey, Keith, we've got to make this happen. And then didn't you say less than a year you guys got the Vendor of the Year award, at least the new Vendor of the Year award?
We did. We were the Trib Rookie of the Year, I believe is what they call it. And I tell you, we were working so hard at the show where they gave the award, we weren't even there to receive it. So it was the fact we actually told by others.
Well, listen, I can always tell you this. If you're busy enough to not get the awards, you'll get the awards afterwards, but it's always taking care of the people that you are there for that really matters, right?
Well, that's the truth. Amen.
So just so that everybody knows, there is actually a little bit of, it's you and Lewis on that YouTube video, correct?
Yes. There was a point in time, again, Lewis was a franchisee and I handled operations for Lewis. We traveled around the country. We did a bunch of state association meetings. We did presentations for APRO. And I believe one of the video you're referencing specifically is the one we did for APRO. It was a how sales and collections are combined, kind of an educational video.
Just so that you know, I want you to know, Keith, I've actually played your video, or at least parts of your YouTube video, twice for some of the new rookies that I had that are coming through. Every so often, every couple weeks, I like to sit down with the new hires that I have and kind of just go over them. What is rent to own? What are the definitions? What does it mean? What are we trying to do and accomplish? How do we incorporate the customer service that we want, the culture that we want? And some of the explanations that you have on a YouTube video are actually so spot on that I actually reference it quite a bit on that new hire situation. I say, hey, do you guys want to know what's going on? Take a look at a couple of these chapters out of this video.
You got me blushing there, Pete. I appreciate that. There's a lot of good content in there. It's a little lengthy, but I do understand there's another group in Texas that actually uses that as part of their onboarding and training program.
It's one of those things, like sometimes people are so interested in making sure that they get it right that they're almost reinventing the wheel. And if I have somebody who's, just saying it really well, somebody who's really getting to the point and can say it articulately and directly, why do it all over again, right? My job is to make sure that everybody understands what's going on in rent to own, and that's what we have this podcast for. But some of the things that you've already covered, like in that video, makes it worthwhile to say, it's not just me. Hear it from people who are in the industry. And that's why I think it's so great that we have people in the industry that have known rent to own, not have only just done it, but have taught it, gone around, shown everybody, hey, this is how we do it, and then become a vendor. I think that's an amazing thing.
I completely agree. Like you said, sometimes we all know the meat and potatoes. A lot of us know the meat and potatoes of the business, and we'll get sidetracked with something that's kind of left field, but it works. And every once in a while, you've got to return to that center because, you can follow those one-off situations, and it's not always to your benefit when you follow them too far and get away from the core fundamentals of the business. So
we've got somebody who brings you in, Lewis Garcia. He knows the business. He brings somebody in who he thinks knows the business. Now you guys you're at Dialectic. What does Dialectic bring to the RTO world that's a little bit different than everybody else?
One of the most interesting things I've experienced and began to understand with my time with Dialectic is that the deals that Dialectic has, they may not be core product, but the discounts and just how quick the product turns around, for example, and it's not a pitch necessarily, but recently, they were able to secure 30,000 of this one particular piece. And the savings and the pricing it was incredible. It wasn't necessarily a rent to own piece, but literally they moved that huge volume in just a matter of a few days. And when I'm able to work with those buyers and those sellers and we're able to secure specific rent to own deals, I'll do my best to push that out, but it may only be available for 24 hours, even in a huge, huge quantity. So I think that separates them a little bit. When you get those weekly promotions from other dealers, maybe you're used to seeing that same product listed over and over and over, whereas with us, you may see one product for 2 or 3 weeks and then it's just kind of gone. It came and it went. Now,
when you said earlier, vendor, distributor, does that play a big role in what you're able to get and the quantities that you're able to get for our RTO world?
It is. It definitely is. One of the strengths of Dialectic is they are a first choice or primary distributor for a number of brands. And we can continuously bring those brands to the market. We just had a press release about our acquisition of a few companies, of our partnerships with a few companies. Champion Power Equipment is a great example. They were nice enough to do a press release and identify us as a preferred distributor for the rent-to-own segment. So Champion Power Equipment, obviously with pressure washers or generators, we can bring those products to the rent-to-own clients at any time. But being a vendor, we also have lines that are getting limited or only available on, for a certain duration of time.
I got to say, when you have the ability, of course, always to bring in a product that's not always widely used or widely had by everybody else, it gives you the advantage. Now, you guys are also on the AMP system, which is a place that you can kind of, if anybody doesn't know what AMP is, it's kind of like, you know what, Keith, why don't you explain, you can probably explain AMP better than I can, actually.
Yeah, definitely. AMP tab is kind of new to me. I'll be honest, when I was in operations for a number of years, not something that we used or utilized. But AMP Tab, I would have to compare to a Amazon for rent to own, as well as retail dealers, any other segment that use AMP Tab. And that's where a company like Dialectic, we would have an online catalog, which, has product pictures, product specific features, as well as price points and availability. One of the coolest, I don't think it's being utilized as well as it can, or maybe I just haven't penetrated my customer base with it. But one of the beautiful things about it is, let's say a group has 10 or 15 stores. Each one of those stores can have a unique login. They can build a cart of products that they want for that week. And when they hit send, it can be coordinated to go to their district manager or to a purchasing coordinator. And I think it's a beautiful thing because I can only envision how much work that would save a purchasing coordinator from having to gather up everyone's orders each week or having them to email in different formats. It's a really nice website with, I think, a lot of potential.
Well, I got to say, I definitely want to say when anything is easier and it's necessary, so you make those necessary evils easier. Oh man, it's like, and you know how it goes. It's a breath of fresh air because, I mean, really what's going on is we want to take care of the customer as soon as possible. We want to fill the holes. We want to fill the needs. And we want to fill it with things that are going to sell, right? And when you have somebody who can bring in things, who knows the rent-to-own industry, not only that, but kind of makes it easier on the order up and the ship down, it just makes it, that streamline just makes it inevitable to get the sales up and move it. Now, Dialectic as a whole has more than the rent-to-own sector, right? You said, I mean, Dialectic is a huge, huge company. So this RTO section that you have for rent-to-own in Dialectic is really mothered by a huge, huge business.
That's correct. Yeah, Dialectic, excuse me. Dialectic is in just about every industrial segment you can imagine. From, let's say, I know casinos is a big segment for them. They do a lot with land development, as well as real estate, building supplies, and then future tech, system boards, robots. I mean, Dialectic is enormous. I'm just carving out the niche and really just breaking the ground into setting this department up with Lewis.
What is it that's coming down the pipe? What's coming down the pipe, Keith? What's the next big thing? I'm always trying to figure that out from everybody, and sometimes it's a little hard to put your finger on. I see a little bit of a tight spot coming up with the economy, and I've had a few people tell me one way or the other. Sometimes that RTO can really kind of withstand the test of time because it's the availability of product that it allows us to work the way we do in hard times and times of hardship. But do you see that coming, and do you think that you carry the lineup that's going to help us get through the tight spots maybe coming up in the next couple of years?
That's a great question, Pete. It really is. I tell you, it's hard to gauge. One of the things I'm really excited about, though, is not only wearable tech, but virtual reality specifically. I think rent-to-own and maybe even the retail markets on a whole have kind of viewed virtual reality as the 3D, from a few years ago, being in the industry. You remember 3D was hot and it wasn't, and it was hot and it wasn't. But, I think VR is around for the long term. I believe when, Apple and your other major players release commercial and units that people can become more accustomed with, I think whether we wanted it to happen or not, virtual reality is here to stay, and it'll become more prevalent in day-to-day society. But, and that goes into things like smart glasses. Oh, goodness, I've even seen these smart clips for glasses now, and I've got a pair of myself. I love the smart glasses. I mean, I can pick up a phone call without breaking stride while I'm working on the computer. It's awesome.
Uh-oh, we got a product pitch from Keith himself. What's the name of these glasses? What are they, the Google glasses, or are they a different pair?
Similar to the Google glasses. I'm not even selling these right now. I do take them to trade shows to show them off, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, those are awesome. But Razer has a really cool set. There are many out there. I know, what is it? Meta, Facebook, Instagram. They have a set with some manufacturer, and it's something we may introduce later down the road. Right now, there's a lot of cheap knockoffs, and there's a lot of brands that come and go, and we don't want to introduce a product that we wouldn't stand behind. So there, kind of let some of those smaller players filter out of that market maybe before we bring it to rent to own. But yeah, the Razer ones are cool. If you've seen me at a show, you've probably seen many classes. I may have handed them to a bunch of folks, and just to see the amazement on their eye, just the amazed look on their faces. when they're listening to music and the person standing right next to them can't hear anything.
Now, see, I want to say that that's something that we're going to look at. Are you going to be at the RTO World this year in San Antonio?
We are. I'm still looking for a few of those, just those products that make you gasp and make you second guess whether or not it would work in rent to own. And, you run home, you buy one for yourself just to try it out. But we're planning on doing it big.
How many years do you have in rent to own outside of Dialectic? Like in straight rent to own, how many years of experience do you have in that?
Oh, goodness. Let's see, 2023, easily 20 years combined service and rent to own, mostly on the operations side.
So then here's the question. I told Mike that I would make a t-shirt that said, here's the biggest question, but I'm going to have to make that. But here's the biggest question that I have right now. Going back 20 years, you have 20 years of experience. You know rent to own like the back of your hand. What products does Dialectic carry, or what product does Dialectic carry that you said, I wish I had that 20 years ago?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and Trib? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
I want to look at it from an operational side. And one of the things that I think give us an advantage right now specifically is international gaming. The international gaming segment, you couldn't do it 20 years ago because you had region locks and, you had restrictions where a unit that would be available in South America or in Asia, you couldn't use it in the U.S. One of the things that Dialectic has, and we do a lot of volume with a bunch of dealers, is international units. And because of, I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but because of currency valuations and trade regulations, we can actually bring in Nintendo, PlayStation, Sony, Microsoft systems at a substantial discount over the same product that you're buying in the U.S. And 20 years ago, I'm sure it would have affected me as maybe an account manager or maybe even a salesperson. But from an operational standpoint, that's one thing we have now that wasn't available then.
That's the one thing that kind of interests you and says, if we would have had that connectivity 10, let's say 15, 20 years ago, you could have sold another 20, 30 customers a month on that.
Without a doubt. I think back, I remember the early days, mostly just stories about, big screen TVs and how they were 300 or 400 pounds. But could you imagine operating in that environment and all of a sudden you're paying half of what your competitor down the street is paying for that same floor model TV? How much of an edge would that give you? So that's really where my thought process is. If you're looking at today versus then, what are the benefits?
I can tell you right now, as somebody who's been in the business 19 years, I lifted some of those heavy TVs, and it wasn't fun. It was extremely difficult at times, especially a guy of my stature. I would love to say, I think in heart, I'm 20 feet tall. But in reality, as far as physics go, I'm only 5'7". So when I'm looking at some of the things that I used to do, and oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But, the big screen TVs. And now, of course, we have the 86 TVs. I think the 86 inches, the ones I think that CPL Group kind of carries the biggest of. We just haven't seen a need to go bigger than that. But I remember when I had a 65-inch rear projection television, and it weighed every bit of 150 pounds. It was about 32 inches deep, and it was a massive piece in my living room. Now I have a 75 mounted on my wall, and we're thinking about going bigger just because it doesn't take up enough wall. Isn't that crazy how things happen between now and then?
Oh, it's night and day difference, and just even a 32-inch back then. It was a task. Third floor delivery for a 32-inch, and you're like, oh. But, nowadays, at 32-inch in the store, that's a walkout for a customer. So a lot of changes, a lot of different things in the business. front loaders. So, I'm sure you remember how heavy they were. Felt like they had concrete, like 8 inches of concrete in the bottom of them back in the day. And
just so we could let everybody know, I want to say that there were a few washer and dryers back in the day that actually did have concrete blocks in the bottom. I don't know if you remember those, and I can't remember which brand it was. I won't try to call them out now either, but I could swear there was one or two that actually did have those solid blocks in the bottom.
I'm completely convinced that that was what they were doing. There's no other reason it could have been that heavy.
So here is what I want everybody to understand. With Dialectic being a vendor, what is the advantage of having Dialectic as a vendor over the competition?
Something we've gotten really good with, and again, I'm less than 1 year into this. We're less than a year into setting up this department. They dabbled into rent to own before they brought Lewis in and subsequently myself. But one of the really cool things that we're able to do is, let's say you want to run a promotion, a back to school, and for whatever reason you want to do the little red wagons that pull behind, kids of the Rockwell days. These clients and these customers, they can reach out to me and say, hey, look, I want a Red Rider wagon, and with our international network, I can literally put out what they call an RFP, a request, give them a brief description of the product, the amount that I'm looking for, the number of units. And within a matter of days, I'm getting offers back. Okay, well, here, Brazil has 300 red wagons. This is what they look like. And Canada has 50 wagons. This is what they look like. So I'm able to gather these estimates and these quotes for people and, shoot it over to the clients, see if it satisfies what they're looking for.
It's crazy you say that, because when I mention Dialectic, I really, and maybe it's just a name and that's me kind of foreshadowing what I think, but when I hear Dialectic, I'm mostly thinking of products as service, right? Whether it be a TV, whether it be a computer, whether it be a something to clean with, like a pressure washer and of the sort. But what you're saying is you're not limited to that, in the sense that with such a global network, you can actually get the extra. Definitely. And it's very easy. I want to say with the electronics, it's very easy with the electronics. And, we're not really ready to jump into TVs, and we're not really ready to jump into appliances, although I get offers all the time. I seen this awesome 11.5 cubic refrigerator from Germany the other day. They're like, hey, look, we've got 400 of these and we'll give you the plug adapter. And man, the price would have just been insane, but they were like neon green. So, I think that's deals all the time, and they're great deals. And sometimes I'm able to bring them rent to own and move some products to these operators. But other times it's like, let's see what else is out here. So a lot of different product options. So let me ask you a question. Why does Dialectic stay away from televisions right now? To me, that would seem like a go-to, and I'm sure that Dialectic has a great reason for that. But is it because there's a saturated market, or is it just not on the right time framing for Dialectic? Look at, obviously we're in post-COVID right now, and COVID was a little bit different. People were forced indoors. Electronic sales went through the roof. A lot of the stores reaped the benefits from customers being inside and, getting a new TV, a new computer, etc. But one, there's some very good vendors in rent to own for television currently. There really are. Quite frankly, I don't know if you can see it from that side, but these vendors that supply rent to own, they are doing it with very slim margins, just very slim margins. They're giving great deals to these rent to own operators, and you factor in the logistics for that. You factor in that super slim margin. And eventually we may, as a matter of fact, I believe at CES this year, Roku actually decided they're going to do their own branded TV. And, that's something we're pursuing. Can we get in with them and partner and be that direct supplier for Roku into this segment? But there are many products like that. It's just there are good deals out there from other vendors. We're going to stay in our lane. We're going to bring the best deals we can on the products that are invigorating. But let these established guys play the TV game for right now. So the Dialectic is filling the niche that's not there just quite yet. Definitely. That's what we want to do. I know you've seen the emails, and we were able to bring a portable griddle here recently, the Coleman XLT. Great idea, great product. A lot of the stores are already selling grills, but they were stationary grills, and these are more tailgating. We don't anticipate these boomeranging back at the end of the summer like maybe a stationary grill will.
So, you take that combined experience of knowing the products for a rent-to-own store, identifying, what can help what's typically a seasonal product stay on rent. And, those are the holes we're looking to fill and we're looking to bring to the table.
Now, you brought up something that I didn't know. I know of Roku. I think I know all my guys know what Roku is and what they bring to the table as far as the TV is. But I did not know that they were actually looking to go out on their own. Is that something that's going to come out soon?
I don't want to mislead you at all. It's just, I know in CES this year, we had a couple of representatives there, and Roku were some of the people they were talking to. So yeah, they're planning on producing their own Roku labeled Roku branded TV. And it doesn't take, much foresight to see that if Roku is successful with that, perhaps they take that away from other branded models using that platform. And, all of a sudden it makes them less attractive, makes Roku much more attractive. So, Dialectic, again, looking forward into the future, we've got people all over the place. And this is just an example, of one product and how in the future we may be carrying it. We may lock the market down, let's hope. But a lot of interesting things always in the works.
So you've done rent-to-own 20 years. You're now in Dialectic as one of the new rookie vendors of the year. What about rent-to-own that sticks in your blood that made you decide to hang around?
I loved it from, I'll say the first month, maybe not that first week. The first week you're in there, you're making a good sweat. There's people yelling at me. But it's an honest day's work, and I love the operation side. There are not many places that 1 minute or 1 hour you're sitting down, you're making cold calls. The next thing you know, you're building a fireplace, you're out delivering a refrigerator. And then you're back just taking a payment, like a cashier would. So it's such a diverse work environment every day. And to be on this side of it and to be able to work with people who are new or bounce ideas and tried and true programs off of them, it's in the blood.
Absolutely. So where is Dialectic located at? If I was to be in, a couple of different states and people want to know, maybe they don't know of Dialectic yet and they want to know of Dialectic, where do you guys ship out of? Is it a one place? Is it multiple places? Or East Coast, West Coast?
We have multiple warehouses across the U.S. and across the world, but in the U.S., we serve clients out of New Jersey. We also have a warehouse down in Miami, and then another warehouse on the West Coast out in L.A. So we do work from 3 warehouses in the U.S.
I'm just going to let everybody know that was a selfless question. I'm worried about the Tampa Bay area. Everybody else, you guys can deal with your shipping as is. No, but it's nice to know that in the areas that you're needed to, you can get to quickly. I definitely want to say that in the Tampa Bay area, we have a big problem from the West Coast, only because it's so far. It takes, the logistics is unbelievable. So when you say a place like Miami and you can service the East Coast pretty well, that's definitely a great thing to do. It's something that we need, to be real honest with you. We have a lot of things, and when the shipping started breaking down during COVID, you probably know as most, the logistics of getting the product that you wanted, it went haywire. Whether it was shipping across seas or whether it was getting it from California or whether it was sitting out in a port, waiting for 20 days to make sure that it either passed customs or whatever the case was, it just made it a nightmare. So getting back on our feet, making sure that we are trying to fill those needs and fill them quickly when you have somebody come in and kind of order that one-off thing, whether it be a grill, whether it be the gaming system, whether it be the glasses or whatever, that you can get it and you can get it quickly. And that's one of the things that I do appreciate about Dialectic. I don't know where everybody is that's listening to this, but I can tell you right now, you guys do get it. You do get it quickly. Now, where can they go? Let's say they're not on the AM tab. Let's say, you have a couple dealers that are still a little smaller. They don't have the AM tab availability yet. Where could they go? Who could they call to get a hold of you guys and set things up?
Obviously myself, I'm the quickest resource, especially for the rent-to-own clientele. I handle rent-to-own operations for North America. So you can call me at 865-369-5902. They can certainly email me, keith@godialectic.com. And I would definitely encourage, especially new people, look, if you shoot me a message, I can send you access to the AMP tab, which isn't always 100% up to date, but it does have a really good overview of just the diversity of products that we offer, as well as the core products. I don't want to take away from the fact that I understand rent-to-own operations. PlayStations and gaming is always going to sell. You're going to have surround sounds, audio equipment. It's always going to sell. And we're working to solidify that core product offering while still being able to bring the value of those one-off or non-traditional pieces to the table.
So reach out to Keith if you guys have any questions. Either email him, call him. You guys can have access to the AMP tab for a little while and see what he's talking about. Great company to work with, great vendors to work with. God, I want to ask you a quick question, though, Keith. What experience that you've had at Dialectic have you had recently, or when you started, where rent-to-own has really kind of played a part in your being able to facilitate the service or the end of a problem, right? Like, I have this knowledge. This helps me to understand this a little bit better. Do you have any of those stories available?
I do. I tell you, as a matter of fact, today, I'm just going to use today as a real good example. Again, it's not a pitch, but I put the PlayStation Virtual Reality 2 systems on sale. And, I'm going through my call list, talking with the buyers from the groups, and I come across this one buyer. They had bought some previously, and they're like, look, we're really having trouble selling this. We've moved a few pieces, but we're sitting on a few pieces. What are we missing? And just going back to rent-to-own operations days, if I'm looking to move a piece, how do I move it? Well, it's a complementary piece. I mean, you need a PlayStation 5, you need a PS5 in order to use the VR. And, rent-to-own has just gorged itself on PlayStation sales over the last 3 or 4 years. I was like, look, are your staff and are your sales folks, are they calling inactive PlayStation customers or paid in full customers who just paid off their PlayStation? Or even over the last 2 or 3 years? Because let's be honest, this is a $500, $600 product. And most of our rent-to-own clientele, they can't go ahead and buy this at retail. And if they're own a PlayStation 5 now, then there's a good chance they want to experience the other games or the other categories or even watch a movie with their PlayStation virtual reality units. So I told them, I was like, look, just pull up your PIF PlayStations over the last 2 or 3 years. Have your sales folk, focus your sales effort. But I think that's just an example of how being in the industry, may have been able to help that client.
I love it. I'm going to tell you, Keith, that was a great example of how knowing the business, sometimes we forget. Sometimes we get blinders on and we just got things that are going on during our day-to-day, whether it's being open to store, making sure that all the deliveries get done on time, making sure that we receive something. We know that we're going to get a couple trucks today, or, just the basics of running the business. Sometimes we need that reminder or that refresher or that fresh insight to say something and go, God, why didn't I think of that? That was a great bit of advice there. And that only comes from knowing rent-to-own. RTO family, I just want to tell you right now, when you have a suggestion like that, it's because you've done it a long time and you know where to put your product placement knowledge to use. I love it. I'm going to make sure that I push my guys to that because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to steal that little bit of advice. And for anybody who's not listening, I'm going to put that in my division and get that working. But Keith, it's always great to talk to you. It's always great to have you on the show. Is there any last bit of advice, any last bit of tidbit information that you want to give out before we call it a day?
There is, and I want to thank you again for allowing me to come speak with you and get some of this information out to rent-to-own. One of the things that we talked about last time is you just asked what is some of these groups can do, what can some of these stores do to increase their sales, especially through the summer period. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that we have so many customers that won't sell or aren't renting a certain product when the competition across the firm is doing great with it. So I'd like to leave you with just anyone who's listening. Look, if you're not selling iPads, and maybe because you tried them 2 or 3 years ago and the execution and the sale just didn't work for you, and so you just cut it as a product category, I'd like to say stay away from just closing off categories completely. There may be a reason. Maybe it's Apple Watch, or you don't do window air conditioners because not a whole lot of people ask for them. Well, if you're not selling it, they may not know it's an option to get it. Whereas you would special order it if they ask, but you don't have 1 or 2 prominent in your advertising. You don't have 1 or 2 prominent in your showroom. It might be why you're not renting it. So it blows me away. I see I have clients literally cross town from another. One of them says, no, I can't rent those. Our customers won't get it. But the competition is less than a few miles away and they're pulling the doors off. So I would urge hesitation and just caution to being closed-minded on any particular product category.
I can tell you what, if you guys have any products that you feel that are on the Dialectic lineup and you're not really sure how to push it, or you're not really sure what it does, or you're not really sure how to handle it, or maybe you are not experiencing the best sales with it, you thought you would, you didn't. Sometimes we happen to, when we go to shows, we get what we like and not what we need. Call Keith. call him or email him at keith@godialectic.com and find out his approach to that, because instead of just giving you advice, he might be sending you 30 more to put back on the floor. It's always good to have somebody who has the experience of rent-to-own moving the product that you have inside your stores at all times, and this is one of those times where it might make a difference. If you have a neighbor that's pushing it out, you should be too. Not that we want to be like everybody else, but we all want a piece of that pie. And rent-to-own, I want to make sure that all you guys are on the same page and we have all the same knowledge. And thanks to Keith here at Dialectic for giving us a little slice of what it's like to have that RTO knowledge and be the Rookie of the Year dealer or vendor, and just having access to all these things. If you guys have any questions, again, reach out to Keith at keith@godialectic.com. If you have any questions, reach out to me. You guys are always welcome to reach me, Pete at the RTOshowpodcast.com, or you can go online, Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us on there, and make sure you subscribe to the RTO Show podcast. That way you don't miss any of these new podcasts that has some information for you that I think you're going to want to hear. Keith, again, so much. We do appreciate it. And this time around, because you're on the show, you get a shirt, sir. So just to let you know, we're going to send that out to you. I'm going to get some information from you, and we're going to send that out to you. That way, when you're out there in Antonio on your off time, you can rock a shirt for the RTO Show, sure.
You know what? I'll wear it with pride as a badge of honor.
We appreciate that, Keith, and I appreciate your time. And, as usual, it's always a great conversation with you, man. I look forward to seeing you down there in San Antonio.
I'll actually see you next week at the Florida show.
Oh, we're going to be an FRDA? Oh, even better. I will see you then, man. Listen, first drink's on me.
Thanks again, Pete.
All right, buddy. Have a great one, Keith. Thank you.